Well, Uncle Doug,
Ahoy.
are you feeling lucky?
A little bit.
I think we could, skip a lot of the banter and just go into a lot of racial slurs, if that's a lot of horrible, horrible things about our Irish friends.
Sounds brilliant.
Okay.
But on this day of days, we won't do that.
We are literally recording this on a certain day.
Well, unfortunately, fellas, I'm a little late on this one.
Oh, okay.
Because by the time our listeners hear this, the feast day of Ireland's patron saint will have passed. Nevertheless, it's a fascinating story, and I wanted to tell it. So pour yourself a beer, don the color of spring, and prepare to celebrate St. Brigid's Day. Ha! I got you good, motherfuckers! Suck it!
Sons of bitch, what?
Yeah, so it turns out...
and Bagora.
It turns out that Ireland has 3 patron saints.
Well, poor Ireland needs them.
Or 4, depending on who you ask, but I say St. Brendan can go screw.
Well, that's what they've been fighting over all this time.
Right?
Whether it's 3 or 4.
That's right. That was the whole IRA.
The schism.
Yeah, exactly.
The troubles.
So anyway, St. Patrick is, of course, their most important saint, but following very close behind, probably because she's a woman, is St. Brigid. The two were contemporaries with lots of stories on how they worked together and interacted.
To co-saint.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. In fact, Brigid is said to have converted to Christianity because she was so inspired by Patrick's teachings.
How about that?
Yeah. The third saint, incidentally, was St. Columba, who I think I mentioned briefly in episode 60 as a dude who hung out with St. Oran.
Who we buried under his church in Iona.
Correct.
Yes.
Correct. Side note, about 60% of the Christians in Ireland in the 5th and 6th centuries are now saints. It's ridiculous. Everyone I read about that wasn't a total dick turns out to be Saint so-and-so.
And some of those were probably pretty dickish as well.
Yeah, indeed. But yeah, like if you made a good person's bed that day, you're a saint.
Right.
It literally everyone that I encountered as I was reading all of this was like, it's Saint this. And then the person who poured their wine was Saint so-and-so.
It's like low-budget movies hand out producer credits.
Right.
In lieu of pay.
Right, yes.
So there's 25 producers on a $2 million movie. It's the same. It's the same thing.
They sainted the fuck out of that place. Anyway, so here's the thing about St. Brigid. There's a very strong set of coincidences surrounding her life. And frankly, fellas, I'm not sure what to make of them.
All right.
Maybe you guys can help me figure it out, because it's not totally obvious at all what's going on. The crux of the coincidences is this. Saint Brigid has the same name as the ancient Celtic god Brigid.
Huh.
Isn't that weird?
I mean, weird with so many names out there.
I mean, it's not an uncommon name, so I guess it's not that weird, but there's more.
Yeah.
I don't want to sound like a conspiracy theorist or whatever, but St. Brigid died, and therefore her saint day is celebrated on February 1st, which super coincidentally happens to be the same day as Imbolg, a Gaelic pagan festival associated with the goddess Brigid.
You're freaking me out.
Very strangely, Catholic Irish folk have long celebrated St. Brigid's Day by doing the same things that people used to do to celebrate Imbolg. Weird, right?
Yeah, this is freaking me out.
I mean, they added some stuff too, but it just strikes me as so unique and strange and unheard of that the church would seem to co-opt an existing festival and change the meaning of it to suit their purposes.
Yeah, I don't. That doesn't hold water.
This doesn't
hold water.
It doesn't feel right.
No,
it doesn't feel right.
No.
Anyway, another weird coincidence was that Kildare, which is the church that St. Brigid had built, had a perpetual flame, the sacred flame that was reportedly tended to night and day by 19 nuns under her authority, just like the perpetual flame that was kept burning by a group of women in honor of Brigid, the goddess, in exactly the same spot before the church took over, which is so odd, really, because the whole eternal fire being tended to by priestesses thing was a super common theme in pre-Christian religions. but wasn't really a thing in Christianity.
Yeah, I think the Irish paganism should have spent some more time working on copyright law.
Yeah, it does. It does seem like maybe they could have
been remunerated at least.
All paganism probably could have done well with that, or any kind of pre-Christian traditions. There are more parallels. Both Brigids being associated with sacred wells, but whatever, coincidence.
Total coincidence.
So, who is this Saint Brigid? Well, to some extent, that depends entirely on which non-fictional, completely true hagiography you read.
Sure.
The earliest of them was written at least 100 years after her definitely happened death, but I'm sure they're all pretty accurate. Brigid was almost certainly actually born in the year for... Do you get the point here? I don't believe this person ever existed. That's what I'm getting to. But yes, she was born in or around the year 451 in a town that's spelled Faughat, which I am going to pronounce fart, in Northern Ireland. Born to Christian Pict slaves, a Christian Pict slave named Broca, who incidentally had been baptized by St. Patrick himself, which makes the story even better, doesn't it?
Sure does.
And of course, entirely not made up.
Is that like Tom Broca?
Her father...
So current.
Right?
The kids are going to love that.
Right. Some of us still remember him. He's got a presence on Facebook. Anyway, her father was said to be the local chieftain Dubstep? Dubthach. Who owned her mom, apparently.
Cool.
And he sold Broca to a local druid when he found out she was pregnant.
Okay.
Which is awesome, because then that's 2 slaves for the price of 1, really.
Sure. Well, if druids, if we know anything about them, they're looking for a bargain.
They are.
Yeah.
Is there such a thing as a Jewid? Anyway. And I'm a racist. Okay.
Oh, this is the anti-Semitism episode.
So anyway, Brigid's extreme holiness started early. Mama Broca apparently was not available to feed little baby Brigid. I'm not sure why. There's no
when you're a slave, you have a hard time setting your own schedule.
It's true. Yeah. It's true. But when the druid, obviously impure as he was...
And druids, as you know, mostly work nights.
Right, it's true. When he tried to feed her, she apparently puked up because... gross. Instead, and this is totally plausible, so shut up, a white cow with red ears showed up and this is all I read, sustained her. I'm not 100% sure that I know what that means, but I like to imagine Lil Bridge staring that druid down as she sucked the milk directly from the cow's teat.
Sure. That's an intense visual.
Yeah, that sort of solid eye contact.
Devil baby.
Yeah, exactly.
Under the cow.
Yeah. Anyway, she was a quirky kid. She was so into helping the poor that she regularly gave her mom's stuff away to them and their druid stuff away to them. For instance, one time she gave away the entire store of butter. But no sweat. She prayed, and the butter was restored. Hooray!
What a miracle.
I mean, all butter is kind of miraculous, but, miracle butter.
Miracle butter.
Who doesn't love that?
Yeah.
Eventually, she was given or sold back to her father, depending on who you ask, possibly because the druid was being charitied out of house and home.
Yeah.
And
he was down to his last cloak.
Yeah, exactly. We don't have any more butter. I have to get rid of her. And Brigid's antics didn't stop there. You couldn't stop that girl from giving away all of everybody's shit.
Come on, Brigid.
One story says that she ran out of food to give away, so she gave a hungry leper her dad's jeweled sword. Which, I mean...
Where did her dad get a jeweled sword?
Also, thanks, I guess. Like, I need food, but... Thanks for the sword.
Well, you can go knock off a liquor store with a jeweled sword.
Sure.
Teach him, give a man a fish and he'll be hungry tomorrow. Give him a jeweled sword.
And he'll sell that for drugs.
And he's in charge now.
Yeah, exactly. I'm the boss. I'm the captain now. Anywho, she founded the church that I told you about, and a bunch of other legendary stuff happened, including St. Patrick, when doing the ritual to make her an abbess, which is a pretty powerful position at the time, accidentally used the words that you use when you ordain a priest.
Uh-oh.
A priest, but she's a lady.
Oh, boy.
But Patrick was like, whatever. She's cool.
So she became a female priest.
Kind of, yeah. I think the words that I read that he definitely said, direct quote for sure, were, "So be it, my son. She is destined for great things." So
it's kind of like, I said the words.
Yeah.
What are we going to do now?
What are you going to do? What am I going to go through the paperwork of canceling it?
Yeah.
No. You have no idea the headache that would cause me. So she also performed an alarming number of pretty amazing miracles.
All butter related?
Most of them butter. Actually, what's funny is that when people in Ireland celebrate, one of the ways that they celebrate Imbolc and St. Brigid's Day is that they do leave out bread and butter.
Oh.
And then shitty little kids with a statue of her go around and collect it and eat it. It's supposed to be for the poor or for her to come and eat. It's kind of like the leaving out the glass of wine for the prophet Elijah.
You know, I got to tell you, I love that shit. I just think that's so great.
Or leaving cookies for Santa or whatever.
Yeah, but I like, leaving bread out for butter out for St. Bridget. Bridget. It gives life texture. That's all I'm saying.
Slippery texture.
Yeah.
At that. So anyway, here are just a few of her non-butter related miracles. Apparently her prayers could still the wind and the rain. That's nice.
To keep the butter dry.
So she's Storm from X-Men.
Yes, she is. The butter version. When she was of marital age, a man came to woo her, but she had offered her virginity to God, which
I'm frightened to know what marital age in Catholic Ireland at the time was.
Right, yes.
She was 4.
Let's call it 8.
Yeah.
So she told the man that he was out of luck with her, but that he should go into the woods behind his house where he would find a beautiful maiden to marry, and her folks would even like him, which apparently totally worked.
Okay.
So that's a good trick to have.
You want to get along with the family.
Some women wear a fake wedding ring to indicate that, if you're a bartender. But how much better is it if you can just be like, go around the back of the bar. There's a lady waiting for you right now.
Okay, these powers seem to be a bit disparate.
Yeah.
She can stop the rain, or she's kind of like Grindr.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, she can conjure
butter.
Ladies. Speaking of her being wooed, she was apparently annoyingly gorgeous, which she was pissed about. So she prayed to God to make her ugly, at least until she was ordained a nun, which God totally did. Then when she was ordained, she became beautiful again.
When she became a male priest.
Right.
She was the prettiest priest in all of Cork.
Oh, Father Brigid is so hot. So anyway, one time Brigid had a headache and set out to see a doctor. This is the weirdest fucking story. Set out to see a doctor, which apparently was like several days travel. So a pretty bad headache, one would assume.
What's the problem with socialized medicine in Europe? Is the wait times are crazy.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
By the time you get to the doctor, your headache's gone.
Yeah.
Which is nice, and
it worked.
Yeah, it worked. Socialized medicine works. You got to take the long view. No, along the way, she stayed with a couple who had 2 mute daughters. The daughters then decided to join Brigid in her journey. You know what good company mutes are.
The pilgrimage to the end of the headache.
Right, exactly.
What good company mutes are.
And then apparently Brigid's horse chucked her off, and she hit her head on a rock.
Oh.
Yikes. The daughters went to help her, and when they touched her blood, they could speak.
Ew.
Ta-da. No word on what their first words were. I wonder if, are you okay?
Yeah.
Maybe.
Does your head still hurt?
Yeah, exactly.
Why did I touch your blood?
Right.
It seems like, yeah. Anyway, no word on how hitting her head on a rock affected the headache.
Right.
There are a whole bunch of other miracles, some of which are pretty gruesome, but my favorite And the reason I think she should be the main patron saint of Ireland and celebrated, the only person who's celebrated, is that at one point, Jesus-like, she turned water into beer.
Hey, yo.
Why is she not in charge over there?
Right?
Yeah.
It just seems like a natural. Who cares about snakes when you've got water into beer?
That's right. I agree with that.
Yeah. What greater miracle is there?
Indeed. When she died, she was given last rites by a guy named Saint Ninid. They're all saints, remember?
Yeah.
Who apparently thought that he had reached peak coolness at that point, and in the world's most impressive version of "I'm never washing this hand again," had the hand that he performed the ceremony with encased in metal so that it would never be defiled.
But still on his hand. Still on his arm.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I don't
Sure.
know. There you go. Went all Jamie Lannister with
Yeah.
it.
Right.
There you go. So she's one of the patron saints. February 1st, which is the day that she's celebrated on and the day that she's purported to have died on,
Yes.
is when the Celt pagans celebrated the beginning of spring, because it's right midway between the winter solstice and the spring equinox. So it is literally like sort of the day that, if you use those as your markers, it's the day that spring begins.
Well, it's hopeful, isn't it? Celebrating spring at the 1st of February, where
Right.
usually there's a little bit of winter left to shake out. But
Yeah.
It's optimistic. I admire their optimism.
I actually prefer that accounting of the seasons to the way we do it, but that's okay. Anyway, one of the things, so like that's another thing where it's just so clearly the pagan ritual.
Right.
On that day, they make what they call St. Brigid's cross, which does not look like a cross. It's probably closer as a symbol to a swastika, and probably was just a little thing. You make it out of reeds or straw, and it's a little thing that they probably made for the goddess Brigid.
Yeah.
And then just transferred it and called it a cross.
As a little spring symbol.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
But yes, they called it a cross. It's one of those moments where I was going to do St. Patrick, but I was reading about her, and I just thought, this is far more interesting.
Yeah.
And very clearly made up from whole cloth. Like, I'm sorry,
Well,
but
stolen from.
Appropriated. Exactly.
Right, yeah, exactly. They took another mythological person,
Yeah.
realized that there was a party happening that day every day, and said, here's why we're celebrating that party.
And that people were very attached to it and unlikely to give it up.
Right.
Right.
And so they turned it, they twisted it into their own thing, made up a character to go along with it, didn't bother giving her a different name even.
Yeah.
Just to confuse matters. I think it was actually clever. It kind of blurred the lines a lot, and then
Yeah.
nobody knew what the hell they were
Well,
celebrating.
if our show has shown anything, it's that Christianity had zero original ideas. They just took existing ideas and somehow made them much worse.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, exactly. So
knock that off.
There you have it. Blarney and Aaron go bra.
Exactly. And most celebrants are when you hear this, will be nursing hangovers rather than celebrating. But we hope it helps. We hope that her sacred headache can cure yours.
Yes, indeed.
When you touch her blood.
Yes, go do that.
Jesus, what a mess.
In the name of the Father, the Son, and Saint Brigid. Amen.
Let's move on.